If you're listening to us on one of the radio stations, we greatly appreciate you doing that. Definitely tell people that you are listening. More listenership gets better people and makes more radio stations obviously pick up these interviews. So we're grateful for you listening, but just let's keep sharing. Let's keep telling people about this program, podcast people, YouTube, Rumble, every other place that this thing is on. We appreciate you too. Again, share, like, subscribe as far as that is. We have a special guest today. I'm excited because she's in my old neck of the woods, my old turf in South Florida in the Fort Lauderdale area, and doing amazing work with that, with her business, her small business, I should say. It's Addie White. It's oceanplasticsjewelry.com, former Massachusetts native, now made her way down to South Florida and it's kicking butt down there. Addie, thanks so much for coming on. I'm grateful, excuse me, to have you on. And also, I'm excited to talk about this business that you started up throughout the pandemic, and it's really kicking butt now.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm super excited to talk about it and reach people and talk about trash in the ocean. So,
Yeah, it's really a sad topic. As a person, like we were talking about before the interview started, I went to college down in your neck of the woods, rather, in Boca Raton, Florida. It was 3 miles from the beach. Used to run there, bike there all the time, and it was a sad state of affairs when we did see the trash on the ground. But let's kick this around. So, tell the audience a little bit about you that I didn't state just a minute ago, and also your connection to the ocean in general.
yeah. So, to make a long story short, so I actually did research on microplastics and specifically how they affect oysters. Because when I was growing up, my family had owned an oyster farm. So I grew up working on my family's oyster farm and just doing that and seeing the ocean and being really tied to it. So then when I started doing research on microplastics, I realized how awful they really are. And then during the pandemic, like a lot of people, I had a ton of time. So I started just taking the microplastics that I have collected and I started making stuff from it just for my family and friends, just as kind of like a fun thing to brighten everyone's spirits and pass the time. And then everyone loved it so much that I just kept going and I started a little Etsy page and then I started my own website and here we are. Just a couple years later, it kind of has, well, now it's turned into my job, which is great. So I have a little tiny studio that I work out of that's behind my house. And I get to just talk about microplastic and trash and pull it out of the ocean all day, which is great.
So, Addie, you're in Florida, as we just stated a couple minutes ago, former Massachusetts native, did live in Rhode Island, I should say. But regardless of all that, what made you go down to Florida and start this business down in the state of Florida? Obviously, Florida is known for the beaches, but so is Massachusetts, so is Rhode Island, and many other states also.
Yeah, so it's actually a funny turn of events, like life events. I would have never ever started this business without the pandemic, actually. But it's one of those things where I actually came to Florida because I was running children's camps. So I was the executive director of a kids camp down here that we talked about environmental science. And we talked about, it was just an outdoor camp for pretty adventurous kids that needed to blow off steam. And it was a device free camp and we were just outside all day. And so that had to shut down, obviously, during the pandemic. So then I just kind of kept going with my passions. So it's totally different, like 180 to what I was doing before, but also kind of in the same vein as like education on the ocean and something I love. So it's a different track, but I still love it.
Addie White again, oceanplasticsjewelry.com. Definitely check out what she's doing there. A lot of good information on the website. Let's kick this around a little bit more. You talked about, being passionate about microplastics and obviously working on your family's oyster farm back in Massachusetts. Would you call yourself an environmentalist?
Yeah, well, I've been environmentalists can get super touchy sometimes
Yeah.
because I think of like being like a huge like hippy dippy person, which I can definitely think I'm a little bit of hippy dippy, but I think that loving the ocean is probably my first and foremost thing. I just love the ocean and I just think plastic shouldn't be in there.
Okay.
So in that way, I'm definitely an environmentalist, but mostly like an ocean lover. And I think we all hate seeing plastic in the ocean. Or just, yeah. So trying to tell people about it and how we can get rid of it. And microplastic is so small that, as a lot of us have seen in like all the articles and stuff, is that it can get ingested by fish and turtles and birds, and then goes into us, which is kind of the next train. Is we're starting to ingest it ourselves, and we don't really know what is happening to our bodies by having plastic in us. So that's kind of something that everyone's kind of worried about.
You're beating me to the punch. That was my next
Sorry,
talking point on fish specifically, but obviously birds, as you stated too. And we'll kick that around in just a second, just to kind of put the exclamation point on what you were just stating about that. I agree. It is a touchy subject, and there are different points of environmentalism. My thing was, obviously we talked about that I went to college in the area where you live now and you're working out of. And, I didn't see as much of the issue with the microplastics down there. Obviously, it's definitely there. But, going to Daytona Beach specifically, quite a few times, that was a huge issue where there was tons of trash left around. And I'm not talking about spring break time. I'm talking about, at colder times in Florida and warmer times, that it was the specific thing. How do we educate people about this problem? Is it to put more trash cans on the beach? If you were in charge of, parks and wildlife or whatever it may be called in Broward County, Palm Beach County, or even over in Volusia where Daytona is, what would you do as far as getting the word out that this is a huge problem and trying to correct it the best way we can?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some really cool, like, effective signs that are like on some beaches, like in South Carolina, and some of the beaches there, they have like really cool signage about plastic, and it shows like turtles and the life cycle, and it's also kind of like a graphic that's really kid friendly too. So that's also really fun. Where like if you can show a kid like, oh, this is a turtle, and if it eats plastic, this is what happens. So especially if you walk onto the beach, it's not so much people leaving their trash behind that's the problem. A lot of the problem is, especially here, like Fort Lauderdale, our side of Florida, that we have the Gulf Stream. So the Gulf Stream kind of picks up all the trash that's come from like all the way in the middle of the ocean and drops it off on our beach. So it's coming back high tide twice a day, same place every day. So it's really not like spring breakers. Yes, they harm the beach, and I would like them to be more responsible. But it's one of the things where it might not be directly like you causing the problem, but it's still there. So if we could all just, like, when we go to the beach, pick up trash, that'd be great. But also, just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not there. So a lot of the things that I focus on is stuff that's an inch or smaller. So a bottle cap or smaller, basically, is the stuff that I try to pick up, because that's really hard to find. But if you look down in the sand and you see a piece of like colorful something, like anything that's like blue or orange or anything that's colorful that you know shouldn't be there, that's definitely plastic. So that's the stuff where if you just look at the sand hard enough, you'll find it, especially in Florida. And then our beach sweepers here in Florida, they're designed really well to pick up seaweed and the big pieces of plastic. So like bottles, and then like the huge pieces of fishing equipment. It's really designed well to pick that stuff up, but it can't pick up the little stuff. So that's a big problem. It's what's left behind.
So when we speak about microplastics, and I know you tapped into this a little earlier on in the interview, Addie, but we'll dive a little bit deeper into this. Obviously we know microplastics specifically, and you can correct me if I'm wrong if you think that you can state it in a better way, is obviously plastic that's, broken down into very small pieces, as you said, goes into the ocean, goes into the sand, turtles, cranes, birds in general, and also fish if it gets into the ocean, which eventually it will because of the tide, as you stated. Will be ingested by the fish. We eat the fish. The microplastic goes into our bodies. Obviously, that's not good for the fish, and especially for us too. Any kind of other things you want to tap on to tell the people that maybe are not as educated on microplastics of what they are?
Yeah. So a lot of microplastics actually surprisingly comes from clothing. Like if you think of like polyester is a type of plastic. And so there's a lot of like, if wool and cotton are two good examples of things that are not plastic. But there are a lot of materials now that are just plastic based. And so when you're washing your clothes, plastic particles do come off, and then they make their way because it goes into the water from your wash and then can go into the ocean. So there are tiny little plastic particles in your clothes. And like us as like a normal population, we can't really do anything about that right now. Like we don't really, there's a couple great companies out there that sell things that you could put things in your washer to pull out the microplastics. But just thinking about like, if you're buying new clothes, like what it's made out of. That's something that's like, and of course, I don't ever want to tell anybody what to do with buying things that they want. But
well, hold on. Let's stop there because there is, when we're talking about buying clothes, it's a whole, totally different topic. But we'll just state this and we'll move forward. I'll let you speak what you had, left to say. But when you buy these clothes, you have to watch out what they're made of because there's a lot of toxic chemicals in these clothes. That's came out. A lot of people are looking into that more so now. So I would tell people, listen, you have to kind of look into what you're buying because if it's in the clothes and you're putting this on your skin, the toxicity is going to go into your skin. Your skin absorbs that. But go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. That's you put it perfectly. Sometimes I get really excited and I start going and talking a lot about this, so that's helpful. And yeah, I mean, microplastic, a lot of it is like the bottle caps and bottles and stuff like that. That there are a lot of different things that can be recycled, but there are a lot of things that can't be recycled. So it's interesting there's 7 different types of like recyclable plastic. So if you like turn over a bottle and you see like the little code on the bottom, it'll have a number. And then depending on where you live, different things can be recycled and different things can't. So unfortunately, it is really confusing. And it's not easy for us to be able to do it, but it's helpful to look up like in your county, what is actually recyclable so that when you're recycling something, what, if it's going to the right place or not, or if it's going to the trash. That's just another helpful thing, but yeah, we can only do our best. So
no, it is a big problem, as a person that, is a Floridian right now. Also, you put everything you can that you think is recyclable as far as the plastic in there. And honestly, unless you really look deep into this, like you stated, Addie, you don't really know what's going to be just thrown back away and what's not. And it's, takes a lot, people have 10-second attention spans. People really don't care. They figure they're trying to do their best by putting it in the recycle bin in general. But, very, very few people are going to look deep into this and say, hey, listen, I can't recycle this and that and all this other stuff. So.
Yeah, I mean, the most helpful, excuse me, the most helpful thing that we can really do is when we go to the beach is just, if we see trash, pick it up and put it in the garbage can. That's really helpful because honestly, that's the fish and turtles and everything, they get it from the beach. And if you see it, the tide's going to come back up, take it back into the ocean, and it might get eaten. So just picking up trash where you find it is super duper helpful to our environment. If we all did it, it'd be great.
I agree 100%. Again, Addie White, it's oceanplasticsjewelry.com. Definitely check out the website. And as we keep progressing into this interview, let's talk about this. We talk about your business as far as microplastics and turning it into jewelry. Can you state the process of how this, process is? I don't know how else to frame it, but we'll go with that and roll with it.
Yeah. So basically, the first step, of course, is collecting the plastic. So I just walk the beach, mostly here in Fort Lauderdale. And I just
so is it, just to interrupt quickly, and I apologize, is it just you that's doing this, or do you have a couple other people, or it's mainly you because it's just your business?
Yeah, so it's actually, my friends really help a lot. So I've been really lucky that my friends have been huge supporters of my business from day one. So usually I could be like, hey, like, let's go, and like I'll provide a cocktail and we'll go walk the beach, and like that's the way I'll pay them for the day, and like we'll pick up microplastic and catch up. So I'm really lucky that they also believe in what I'm doing. So we usually are able to fill up like ice cream container worth of plastic each in about an hour. And that's just including the microplastic, not including like if we find bigger items, because the bigger items can be recycled. There's a possibility for the big items to be recycled, whereas the small pieces can't ever be recycled. So that's why I keep those pieces. But so that's the first step, is collecting them. Next step is cleaning it, which can be kind of a gross process, but I still do enjoy it. I just clean it with soap and water and buckets. And then after that, dry it. And then I take the plastic that I've collected and I put it in a mold and use plant-based resin to hold together like glue. So the plant-based resin doesn't add more plastic to the environment. So it's soy-based rather than plastic-based. So it's another way that I'm trying to reduce my plastic usage. Because people often tell me like, oh, like this looks like it's made from plastic. And I'm like, well, it's a little better than plastic. So
is the straws a big issue too?
So the straws, I do find a lot of straws, definitely. But I think that the video of the turtle with the straw in its nose hit everyone so hard that that's luckily I'm not finding as many straws on the beach as I used to. So I think that that's a really good thing. And if I do find straws, like sometimes they're like the agave straws or like the made from compostable plastic, stuff like that. So I feel like the straws are becoming less and less, but also the beach sweepers can pick up the straws because they're so long. So that's a good thing about the systems we do have in place on the beach here.
All right. Did you finish? I'm sorry I interrupted
Yeah,
you.
I'm done. Yeah, sorry.
Did you no? Did you finish about the ocean? How you make the jewelry, or did I
Yeah.
interrupt?
So I mean, the last step is the filling it, making. Excuse me. I'll start over. My brain was moving too fast for my mouth.
You're good. We all
So
do that, so it's not
yeah,
that serious.
yeah. So once I put the microplastic in the mold and use plant-based resin to hold it together. After that, it's just waiting enough time and then shaping it and then putting it together. And like coming up with different designs and coming up with stuff that people would actually wear and use. So that's the piece on that. And then I'm starting a new line right now that I'm really excited about where I'm recycling like old fishing nets from like I come from a fishing background. My family are fishermen, oystering. So I have a lot of friends that back up north have fishing gear, and fishing gear is made from plastic. And so they can't, there's not like a really good way to recycle the nets. Like those, if you think of like big, huge, those green nets that you sometimes see. So a lot of times, like regulations have the fishermen switch over from different types of netting, and then they have all these this trash they don't know what to do with. So my new line is I'm taking that netting and creating like different pieces specifically from that, not just microplastic. And so that in that way, that's another project I'm working on to try and take more trash out. But stopping it before it goes in the ocean, really, because I'm talking to the fishermen directly and just taking it from them. So that's another project.
So how are they going to get the nets to you if they're all the ways up north? Are you going to drive up and pick all this stuff up and then come back down to Florida? Are they, flying it down? How's all that going to work?
Yeah, so it's funny enough, my family's still up north, so and once in a while I'll tap my parents and say, hey, like that so and so has a bunch of nets. Do you mind if they drop it at your house? And so we've had fishermen drop stuff off at my parents' house. And then whenever I go visit my family, I'll come grab it. And I try and fit as much as I can in a carry-on. And then the rest, it's probably the smelliest carry-on that ever existed, but it works. So, and then the UPS or USPS shipping some stuff down to me. I've had a lot of people, a cool program that I've started is that people can send me the plastic that they collect. And then I'll make something for them for free as a thank you and send it back to them. So if people find plastic and they are like, okay, I have this plastic, I know it can't be recycled, I'll take it from them. So in that way, I'm trying to create like more of a community effort where I know there's plastic everywhere. And if I can just take it all, I can make stuff from it and give it a second life. So I have a link on my, like in my little bio in my link tree that says, do you have plastic? You can send it to me and you just fill it in and then you pick what free piece you'd like and I send it to you. So, yeah.
Right. That's awesome that you're giving back. They're giving to you and you're giving back to them, I should say. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Again, for people listening, Addie White, it's oceanplasticsjewelry.com. As we keep going into the interview, let's speak about this. You spoke a little bit earlier on, and I know we kind of diverted into different parts of this, but that's good. The viewers and the listeners will enjoy our conversation regardless. But let's just dive back and detour back into this conversation about you on the beach with your friends you guys are catching up. You're picking up a lot of things. Excuse me. With that said, when you're on the beach and you're picking up all this trash, what are the looks and the comments from the people on the beach in general? Are they giving you funny looks? Are they saying good job? What are they doing?
Yeah, that's actually a very funny question. Because a lot of the time, most of the time, people ask, "Oh, are you picking up shells?" And they think we're picking up shells and like doing that, and they're like, "No, we're picking up trash." And then once you say, "Oh, we're picking up trash," I've had so many people afterwards be like, "That's so cool," and then they'll go pick up trash themselves, chase us
Oh, wow.
down, and then give us trash. And so that has been the coolest thing is I've had people just like, and I've had people ask me about it, and I usually am wearing a jewelry so I can explain it. And then I talk to them about it, and they're so excited. And especially when you're on the beach and get to talk to someone, and then they look down and they're like, "Oh my gosh, there's trash, there's trash." And they pick it up themselves. That's like some of the coolest, like transformational conversations I have. And it's my friends are amazing at explaining it. And so people will come up to them all the time and be like, "Oh, what's this about?" And they're super passionate about it. So I'm lucky that when we go to the beach, people are interested and don't think I'm a total weirdo. I mean, maybe they do, but it's nice.
Well, that's their problem if they
Yeah.
do. But regardless of that, we'll keep moving forward. I want to ask you this question because you didn't really bring this up throughout the conversation, but obviously you have to have some sort of artistic ability to do this process that you're doing this. So let's go back to that. When did you kind of see that? Obviously, you started all this throughout the pandemic when you had a lot of free time, but that's not when your artistic ability started. It had to be before that. So when did you know, hey, I'm very artistic and I really can do this?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So my mom is actually an incredible artist. So I've always kind of grown up in a really artistic house. And so when I was a kid, I loved photography. I did like in college, I did art too. And I've always loved all things artistic and creative. And it's been a great outlet for me. And so that's one step further. And also I love trying different artistic mediums. I like to try different things. And so that's one of the things where I was like, okay, let me try to make jewelry. That was during the pandemic, obviously. But I think that when I first started making jewelry, it was awful. It looked very bad. And I'm very lucky that my friends and family were so nice and gave me tips and like little ways to improve. But that's just another thing of like just starting. You don't have to be great at something, but just starting it and doing it and getting better over time, you learn a lot. So I definitely, my work now looks totally different than my work when I first started. And I've been really grateful to my friends that give me pointers and are very honest when something's bad, and they'll just tell me they're like, this does not look good. So at first it was a struggle. So and now we're here, which is good.
So, Addie, are we in your workshop right now?
Yeah, so this is my little shed. So it's an 8 foot by 8 foot shed, but it's just enough space where I can get my work done, but it's also so small that I can't clutter it up and I can't get it all dirty. So that's good. But yeah, I have all my plastic in here and all my trash, and I do everything out of this little space, including like shipping orders and everything. So it's a good little space for me. And
And
I
I'm
finally got
hope
AC, which is great.
I
AC
was
and
just gonna state that I was gonna say I hope that white thing behind you is air conditioned. Otherwise, you'd be in a hot box.
Oh yeah, when I first had, because this used to be a wood shop for the previous owner of my house,
Yeah.
and it was kind of in disrepair and stuff, and it did not have AC, and so I redid it and made it pretty, and I was really
Oh.
happy with it. But then the first week I spent in here without the AC, I was like, this is not going to work. So now here we are with an AC finally, which is good. So
That's scary. Without AC
yeah,
down there, that is like a death sentence. But
yeah,
we'll move forward. So we got a couple more questions. Some of these are audience questions. We'll go into those in just a second. I'll state the last question. Reading about you and learning about you, Addie, I saw that you were working with Suzuki rather, Marine
yeah.
on something to do with engines. Can you talk to the listeners and the viewers about what you're doing with them?
Yeah, so it's actually like it's so exciting. Where Suzuki, they found me at the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show. It was my first really big event that I had ever done. I do a lot of concerts and stuff, but that was my first like industry event. And I had a tiny booth, and they actually found me in the back of the convention center because they are they're really focused on taking microplastic out of the ocean, and they have different programs where right now they have two engines, the 115 and the 140, that have a microplastic collection device inside the engine. So while you're boating around, you can be collecting microplastic. And so I knew that I was aware of that program, but then they came up to me and they said, hey, we have this microplastic. We would love to work with you to figure out what we can do for our boat owners and our engine owners, if we can make something from the microplastic. And so now starting in July, I'm going to be taking the microplastic from their engine owners to make them something. And I send it to them for free. And it's just a program where we're just giving back and showing people like microplastic can be repurposed. And there is a way for we could pull it out of the ocean. And the exciting part for me is that if we think about like every boat engine that's driving around in the ocean right now, if everybody's doing a little something, that'd be amazing. Like if we could all start doing that, that'd be great. And it's like, why not? We're out boating, we're having fun anyway. So why not just clean up the ocean? And the engine owner doesn't have to do anything themselves. It's the maintenance. So when you get your 100-hour service, the mechanic will take the plastic out of it themselves. So it's really a no-brainer for someone that's looking into buying an engine.
Right. Sounds like a good plan. I want to move into these last few questions, as I stated, and let's talk about this. You have done so many different designs, some on your website. I'm sure some are not. Can you talk to the viewers and the listeners about how you get these designs? Is it friends? Is it family? Is it yourself with your artistic abilities? Maybe your mom also?
Yeah.
Who's giving you all these designs to create this beautiful jewelry?
Yeah. So a lot of it is I look on Etsy for the molds and see what people like, what's available, but also what's popular. And then also one thing that I've been really doing lately is I've been trying to, if I go to Target and I see a pair of earrings on sale or a necklace on sale, I try to take it and then I make a mold of it myself. So the designs all come from like, okay, like that looks really pretty. That looks really cool. Like, let's try and give it my own spin. And then a lot of events that I do, I meet other artists and they have really cool work. And so I have been partnering with some other artists to be like, hey, like, would you like it? People that do metal work, I'm like, hey, would you do the metal work for my piece and I can do the plastic work and we can kind of partner on that together. So a lot of it is other artists' input and just like, it's really cool to go to events and they share ideas pretty freely. Everyone's really great with helping each other because everyone has small businesses. So they get it. So that's been really, really beneficial. Just open communication with other artists.
As we go toward the end of the interview, again, Addie White, it's oceanplasticsjewelry.com. Everybody that's listening, check that out. Let's finish with these last two questions. What do you hope the audience learns from my interview the most today?
Yeah, that's a great question. That microplastic we can have solutions to microplastic. That there are, if people are creative enough and people are interested enough, microplastic can be turned into something cool. And I think it's microplastic doesn't have to be seen as like a doom and gloom situation. It could be seen as an opportunity. So if we just all do a little bit and pick up plastic out of the ocean and off the beach, we can all do a little better and do our part. And that to send me your plastic, that if you pick it up, I'll take it.
So I know it's oceanplasticsjewelry.com. Besides that, where else can people follow you, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, SD? Tell all the viewers about that and the listeners too.
Yeah. So best place to find me on like the socials is Instagram. So my Instagram is ocean.plastics. The dot's important. And then you'll see my little logo. It looks like a water droplet. And then if you want to shop my collection and what I'm making, best place is my website. So those are kind of where I'm most active, but also send me an email. And you can find anything off of my Instagram, my link, and you can send me emails about whatever topics you want to talk about.
Okay. Addie White. Addie, so if people do want you to do some kind of personalized um, symbol or jewelry for them, obviously, depending on what it is, would be depending on what you could do it. So they could send you an email with a picture or something like that, and you could go
Yeah.
from there then.
Yeah, so I love making custom pieces because I'm making all the pieces custom anyway. So if someone tells me like, "Hey, this is what I'm looking for," yeah, it'd be very exciting.
All right, so that's a good thing for people listening to do. If you want to get something, customized, personalized to whatever your liking is, you can email Addie again, oceanplasticsjewelry.com. And then just repeat the Instagram again,
Yeah, so it's ocean.plastics.
ocean.plastics. Addie White again. Thanks so much for your time. Look forward to another conversation with you down the road. You're doing amazing work, and we're very grateful to have you on the program today.
Yeah, thank you guys. Have a great day. Enjoy and go clean up the ocean.